right, welcome back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Rudy, how are you doing today?
Doing quite well. I mean, hasn't really been that long since the last time we sat down here and chatted, but lots been going on in NHL here, so we got a lot to dive in here with.
Yeah, lots picking up in this off season, which is good because God, I hate going those like 2, 3 week stretches where there's just like nothing going on in the NHL.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, you kind of get to those points where you hit a roadblock and it's not much happens for an extended period of time, and you're just kind of waiting for the next bit of news to drop.
Yeah, we got quite a few since our last episode. Do we want to start with
Oh, do
the
we ever?
Pierre-Luc Dubois trade and extension?
Yeah, that's kind of the big trade that happened. What are your initial thoughts on that deal there?
Well, first, I'm just going to outline it for those of you who haven't heard. The LA Kings receive Pierre-Luc Dubois, and the Winnipeg Jets receive Alex Iafallo, Gabriel Velarde, Rasmus Kupari, a second round draft pick in 2024. So that's
Yeah.
a pretty steep price for one player.
It really is, and it's the way I view it is the LA Kings overpaid twice in this deal. Not only did they have to overpay in what they gave up to get Dubois, but I think they also overpaid him in the extension that was given to him. What is it? It's 8 years at 8.5.
Yes, 8 years at 8.5.
Yeah, so I mean, like you just straight up, he's getting paid more than um, Jack Hughes and Tage Thompson are kind of the first two names to come to mind here for me. So like that's I mean, and that's not to say he's not a good player, but it's like
Oh
you
yeah,
know
he's a
he's
great
not
player,
he's not
but
worth 8.5.
yeah, that's a pretty steep price on both the extension and the trade, like you were saying. Like Alex Iafallo and Gabe Vilardi, I really thought those were two guys that they were kind of building the team around.
Yeah, I mean, I follow. Like, I think he. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a good player, and he does a lot of things right when he's out there. But I think he's kind of a fringe top six winger, and whatnot. But I think he's mostly kind of more suited for a third line role. But I mean,
Yeah.
Gabriel Velarde, what was he? He was like 11th overall, 12th overall. Draft pick by the Kings. He took a little bit to kind of find his game in the NHL, but he really took off this year. So it's kind of surprising that he's really just starting to make an impact, and now he's shipped off to Winnipeg. But he's a
Yeah.
he's a good Canadian boy, as Don Cherry would say. And he seems really excited about going to Winnipeg, and that's not something that we haven't really seen much of that lately, where players are actually excited to go to Winnipeg and want to be there. So that's a very good sign for Winnipeg that Velarde's really embracing this and is excited to be a part of what Winnipeg's building moving forward.
Yeah, I think some people it could be definitely easy to underestimate, especially in some of the smaller Canadian markets, how important it is to have guys who genuinely want to be there and want to be a part of your organization.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, like you said, he's like just recently found his game, and it's not like he took forever. He's 23 right now. He's an 11th overall from the 2017 draft, but like he honestly, like I really don't think they needed to go a ton past him and a second and like too much more. Like yeah, Velarde or Iafallo definitely could have been a part of this deal. I'm surprised it was both of them and more.
Yeah, and everybody talks about Iafallo and Velarde, but Rasmus Kupari, he was also a former first round pick for the Kings. He's really kind of struggled in the NHL, but he has been putting up progressively better and better numbers in the American Hockey League. So maybe it's just one of those guys where the Kings maybe just weren't using him in the right role, and he is a centerman, so that's also kind of, you know, there wasn't much room for him to, get up in the lineup with the Kings and be in his role where he belongs. Um, Again, I'm going to go back to it, like I said with talking about Tage Thompson. We saw with Tage Thompson earlier in his career, he was always he was a natural centerman, but in the NHL he was used as a winger for the most part. And once Buffalo finally allowed him to go back to being a center where he's comfortable, we just saw him take off like fireworks. It was incredible. So I'm hoping with Kupari, um, I think Scheifele. It kind of sounds like Scheifele's done in Winnipeg. Dubois is now out of there, so it gives Kupari a chance to come in and be a solid centerman for Winnipeg and really, elevate his game and potentially, turn into a really good player. Because again, like he was a first round pick for a reason, so he's got the skill to do it.
Yeah, uh, definitely agree with all of that. Like, and I'm just right here. I've got the stats pulled up for Iafallo and Velarde. Gabe Velarde last season, 41 points and 23 goals. It doesn't exactly jump off the page, but that's not bad. That's also in 63 games.
I was gonna say
So
because he missed
he could
some time with an
get to
injury.
30 goals, 55 points, something like that.
Yeah,
And
and
follow, sorry, I follow 59 games, 36 points. So he's probably also on pace to hit around 50, 55 points.
yeah, and you look at Winnipeg, and again another guy, Blake Wheeler. It sounds like probably a buyout is going to happen. Um,
Yeah.
in the end for him, which is kind of a tough way to see him, go. He's been a big part of that franchise. But Velarde, they I think he can play center, but I think he's more naturally a right winger. And so, you get him, if you can convince Scheifele to maybe stick around and, you put Velarde with, like a Scheifele and a Kyle Connor or something, like you could see just an insane growth from Velarde, um, in his production with the Jets next year as well. So, I mean, I think as of right now, the LA Kings got the better player, but
Yeah.
Winnipeg just smashes trade. Like I love this trade for Winnipeg. They've been
Yeah.
losing, a lot lately as a franchise, but this was a very big bright spot for them.
Yeah. Not to mention the fact that their hand was kind of forced. This is almost in a way similar to the Kachuk trade we saw last offseason, where the GM's hands were kind of tied. Everyone knew Dubois wanted out. And at the time, it seemed like he only wanted to go to one team. It seemed like it was Montreal or nothing. And
Well,
he
we
ended up
talked
not
about
only
that
getting it
earlier.
to a, yeah, like it's a really well done job on this
The,
trade.
the the part I just find weird is like you look at LA, it sounds like Kopitar. They've already got Kopitar. He's kind of their guy still. They've also got Philip Deneau, and now you've got Dubois. So like that's a really solid, 1, 2, 3, up the middle. But you got to find ways to get enough ice time between these guys because they all deserve their respected amount of ice time. So you still have to find a way to allow all of them to um, thrive in their respective roles of whatever way you want to do it with the three of them.
Yeah, well, not to mention, who knows when Quinton Byfield is gonna break out? Because I think he's been
He,
playing some wing for the Kings, but naturally he's a centerman, and I think his play style really benefits from him playing that position.
Yeah, because he's a big body, and I think again, yeah, he's one of those guys that naturally is better as a centerman. But with this move, I mean, it looks like he's destined to be a winger as long as he's on the Kings. It seems.
Yeah, I don't. That's a really solid top three, yeah, and I don't know if any of those. I don't think any of those top three centers would translate over to the wing as well as Byfield would
The
at
the
this
only guy
point.
you could would be Dubois. Like Kopitar and Deneau are two of the better two-way centers in the league. You
Yeah,
know, they can do it all. They can put up points for you, but they can also hold it down in their own end. Like you and they're good at faceoff. So you can't take either one of those guys out. Like Dubois would have to be the one to shift if you were to move Byfield in, I think.
right. How old is Kopitar? Like does he got quite a bit of time left? I mean, I guess he spoiler alert for later in the episode, but he just won a league award again, so
He's turning
it's not like he's
30
on his way out.
he's turning 36 in August. So, you know,
He's getting
he's
up there.
yeah, so you've probably only got, you know, in this day and age in league, like I'd cap it at probably 5 years max for him. I would
Right.
say you're probably going to get another 5 years. So, you
And
know,
he's probably not going to be, playing first line minutes that entire time. Probably will for the next two or three, but
yeah.
eventually they all start falling down the lineup.
Also,
But
just before we move on to the next topic, just staying on the LA Kings, also worth noting they traded defenseman Sean Dursey to the Arizona Coyotes for a second round pick. And, you know, again, I think that's a phenomenal acquisition for the Coyotes. You know, Dursey's still a really young defenseman. Um, Phenomenal speed. He's such a fun player to watch. And he's really now coming into his own, like, you know, he just put up 38 points in 72 games as a member of the Kings. So um I'm really high on him. He's such a fun player to watch, and he's a right shot defenseman, which, you know, teams are really trying to get because there's, you know, they're kind of hard to come by right now in the league. So, or at least ones of a higher skill level, at least.
yeah,
So that's a great trade for the Coyotes, and I think he's going to be a great guy on the blue line for them.
absolutely. I mean, it's like I get they wanted to shed some cap, but I mean, a defenseman who can put up 40 points, like that's as a right-handed shot, like that's really valuable. I'm surprised that they just traded him away like that.
I think the biggest reason was because, again, kind of like with Kopitar, they still have Drew Doughty there, and then they've also got Brant Clark coming up. So, and I think that they also
Right.
have Jordan Spence. So they're really kind of just running out of room. And, you know, as good as Dursey was, he was just kind of the odd guy out at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's true. It's just a cap casualty.
Yeah. But enough about the LA Kings here. What do you got next on the agenda here for us?
Next we got the Timo Meyer extension.
Yeah, that
Signs with
was
the Devils 8 years for 8.8 mil.
yeah,
That's
and
pretty
that's a
good
good
for
deal.
both of them.
And I'm surprised by it. Just because, again, you know, kind of went back to they really didn't want to pay anyone more than Jack Hughes. Um,
Yeah,
but I think, you know, the Devils kind of realized they were at a point where, you know, Meyer just, you know, between with San Jose, who was a bad team, and then with the Devils, he just put up 40 goals. So how can you, you know, try to undervalue him and be like, you know, like there's no way Meyer was going to commit to a long-term deal but get underpaid because he knows what he's worth. And I think the
yeah,
Devils finally realized, like, yeah, if we want him around long term, we're going to have to pay him what he's worth. And I think that's still a phenomenal deal, you know,
yeah.
for both Meyer and the Devils moving forward.
I don't know how much more it would have been, but I think he probably gets 9 or more mil on the free agency market.
Yeah, I
I
think
think
if
I think it was a
he
good amount.
was, yeah, I think if he was a UFA and did go to free agency, I think there is a team that would have offered him at least 9. It could have maybe got up to like the 9.25 range. But you know, I think 8.8 for 8 years is a fantastic deal for him.
Yeah.
And
And
again,
he
he's
doesn't just bring the points and the goals. Like he's
yeah,
also, he drives the play on the line he's on. He gets in there, he grabs the puck, he plays a mean game.
yeah. I was just gonna say he
That's a guy
brings
you
that
want.
physicality as well, which is hard to come by for, you know, skill guys. Kind of again, kind of like a Dubois, you know, is not only can they put up the points, but they do bring that physical aspect and grit to the game as well.
Right. All right. Next on the docket here, we got Kaylor Yamamoto and Klim Kostin getting traded to Detroit for future considerations. And that's
Yeah,
it.
that's a great trade for Detroit, you know. It just Winnipeg or not Winnipeg, Edmonton, they just ended up, you know, kind of between a rock and a hard place. You know, they really, really like Costin there. He was a fan favorite, but he was just asking for a little bit too much, and deservedly so. He had a great year, and Edmonton, you know, they've got to worry about future contracts to go out. They still have to work out something with Evan Bouchard. So, you know, and they were already trying to get rid of, you know, Yamamoto and his contract as it was. So I think Costin just kind of was thrown in there as like the sweetener rather than a draft pick because they knew they weren't going to be able to
Keep him
give him
anyway.
what he felt he was worth. Yeah, so
Right.
Costin was basically like the, you know, the second or third round pick they would have had to attach to get rid of Yamamoto.
Right. And in that own right, you know, as much as it sucks to give up a guy like that, it also sheds his cap. So it's
Yeah,
rather
exactly right.
unfortunate for the Oilers, but that's just the position they're in at this point.
Yeah, and that's, you know, it's the problem you run into when, you know, again, like I said from the very beginning, you're paying Darnell Nurse a shitload of money. You know, you're gonna run into that issue, and you know, this is the first of casualties on the team that are a result of that.
Yeah. Just want to throw this in there since you brought it up. Who would you rather have, Darnell Nurse or Seth Jones?
Uh, um, wow, that's actually a really good question. It's
Yeah, I think it's fairly close, but I do think there's a better player there.
I think I would take Seth Jones
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
because you know what I mean, he was so fucking bad on Chicago. But again, what did he really have to play with? You know, he was never really in a position to succeed from the moment he got there. Um, and we've seen flashes of brilliance from him with Columbus and even, you know, Nashville where he first started. Um, you know, I love the physicality that Nurse brings, but I think as a standpoint for a defenseman as a whole, I would take Seth Jones.
Yeah, yeah, completely
But it
agree.
is close, I think.
Yeah, I think it's pretty close there. All right,
That was
so
a
we
good
get
one though. That was a good one. Good
yeah.
comparison too.
Do they have the exact same cap hit? Are they both 9.5, or is one of them like 9.25?
I think Nurse is. I'll pull it up here just to double check, but I'm pretty sure Nurse is an even 9 mil.
Oh, that's still. Oh,
Yeah,
you look
yeah,
around the league at some of the
that's still not
contracts.
good. Darnell Nurse 9.25, so right in the middle.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I got one more noteworthy trade here. Probably missed a couple over the
Oh,
last
and then
week, but
just to finish it off there, Seth Jones is 9.5, so they're pretty much the same.
right.
They're
You
not
know
far
what?
off.
Maybe 250 grand. Maybe that's exactly how much better Seth Jones is.
Yeah, honestly, actually, yeah. Both overpaid,
That's
but
that's just how it goes sometimes when
yeah,
you got GMs throwing the money around.
yeah.
All right. Last trade I got written down here. We got Corey Perry being traded earlier today to the Chicago Blackhawks for a seventh round pick next year. And just some
Yeah.
of the cap dump trades that have gone on recently, and that how much people are having to pay to get rid of. It's funny that Tampa was able to get a seventh and not, have to pay to get rid of him or just get nothing.
And Corey Perry, from what I'm seeing, he is signing with the Blackhawks.
He is.
Don't look it up. I'm going to give you one guess on what you think the contract is.
Oh, are there numbers out there already?
Yeah, it's not confirmed, but it sounds like it's pretty much a done deal.
All right.
At
Well,
this current moment.
it's gotta be 1 or 2 years. There's no way he's signing more than two. I'm gonna guess. Oh man, it can't be much, dude. He just played 2 years with us for like I think it was like 800K. The Blackhawks are weird. I'll go like 1.2 mil a year for 2 years.
So it's a from what it sounds like, it's a 1 year deal.
1 year, okay.
Ready for this? I don't think you're
What
ready
did
for
they do?
this.
I'm worried. What did they do?
$4 million. The exact deal they just gave Nick Foligno.
Holy crap, that's amazing.
Now,
Dude,
I will
go
say
get
this though.
paid.
I will say this though. Um, also worth noting that Boston shedded cap to send Taylor Hall to Chicago as well with Nick Foligno. So they have Corey Perry, Nick Foligno both signed 1 year, $4 million. I mean, it's very similar to what Edmonton did when they got Connor McDavid, and now Chicago with Connor Bedard. They're bringing in Nick Foligno and Corey Perry. Um, you know, two guys who are, big, strong players, good veterans who can teach Bedard, but can also fight and be guys to protect him.
Right. Absolutely.
Also, wasn't
Yeah.
it in the playoffs when Tavares got hurt off that freak accident with Corey Perry when he was on Montreal? Wasn't it Nick
Right.
Foligno that told Corey Perry, like, we have to fight, and then they dropped the gloves and Foligno just beat the shit out of him?
I think it might have been.
Yeah, they were.
I think it was.
So now they're teammates and they're going to battle to protect Bedard there. So, but yeah, one as it sounds, 1 year for $4 million for Corey Perry.
That's wild. I mean, it's not like they're going to be up against the cap in this next year, so it's not like it matters, but
Well, and
it's still funny to look at them get that.
Yeah, and I think a big part of it was they had to find a way to, get to that cap floor at least. Because really what they're paying Seth Jones a shit ton of money, like we talked about, but throughout the rest of the team, there's not, and now with Taves and Kane, they're huge salaries off the books. They need to find a way to get to that cap floor at least. So these deals will help them reach that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, didn't they buy out? Didn't they buy out a contract earlier today? Didn't they buy out like Josh Bailey or something?
Yeah, actually, the Islanders sent Josh Bailey in a 2026 second rounder to Chicago, and then Chicago did buy out Josh Bailey, so there is a little bit of cap that goes there as well. So
Is he like bad enough to warrant a buyout? I haven't really
I don't
been too
I
close
don't
attention
think
to him.
so. So, like, don't get me wrong, Josh Bailey is still a good player. I think he just I watch a lot of Islanders games, and his effort level is just slowly kind of decreased over time. And then the Islanders obviously got lots of good wingers and young guys who are coming up. So Josh Bailey just kind of got pushed out of the lineup.
Right.
I guess they felt he didn't fit the mold of what they were trying to start building there in Chicago. But yeah, so I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with Josh Bailey where he ends up. But I thought that was kind of weird that they bought him out when I thought he'd also be a good guy to kind of teach Bedard and show him the ropes of coming into the NHL and learning the game more.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously he's already got, Foligno, Taves, Corey Perry, but, more more guys and veterans is never a bad thing for knowledge. I'm
Yeah,
sure there's at
exactly.
least one thing that Bailey's figured out that none of these other guys have seen before. Even if
Also,
it's some neat new way to, tape your stick or something like that. You pick up a
yeah,
lot of tricks being around for a long time.
yeah, oh yeah, for sure. And also I'm thinking, because Chicago also got Taylor Hall, so I'm thinking
Right.
Taylor Hall throughout his career, the amount of first overall picks in their um rookie years that he's played with is insane. Because what is it? He played with Ryan Nugent Hopkins, Nail Yakupov, Connor McDavid. Then with New Jersey, I'm pretty sure he had Heischer and Hughes,
Heischer and Hughes,
and now
and now
Bedard.
Bedard.
Yeah, like
Missed a couple in the middle years there, but I mean, he was also on teams that it's like he could have been playing with the first overall, you know, if
yeah,
Arizona got lucky.
yeah, honestly, right? So I mean, he's had his fair share of good players to play with, and again, he was just it kind of sucks for him. He was finally actually committed to a team with Boston, and seemed like he finally settled down, and unfortunately, just became a cap casualty as they wanted to sign Bertuzzi, but it sounds like even Bertuzzi now is hitting free agency. So, but hey, maybe Hall finds a good landing spot there with Chicago and can make some magic happen with Bedard for however many years.
Yeah, I mean, he seemed to find his game a decent bit there in Boston. He played pretty well. That's that's a real good chance to, if you could get on the power play with a guy like Bedard and Corey Perry, like that would be a pretty sweet way to maybe see if you can get a couple extra dollar signs on your next contract.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then just the last trade to just kind of just mention before we move on. The Vegas Golden Knights, they traded Riley Smith to the Pittsburgh
Right.
Penguins for a third round pick. So, uh, you know,
Just another cap casualty. We'll be saying that quite a bit over the
yeah.
next few
And,
weeks.
and and that one's funny because at the trade deadline, um, Pittsburgh traded Teddy Bluger to Vegas for a third round pick. And it was that same third round pick that Pittsburgh then ended up sending back to Vegas for Riley Smith. So it was essentially Teddy Bluger for Riley Smith, which I
Huh.
mean for Pittsburgh, that's a phenomenal deal there. I think
Yeah,
like
that's
that's
pretty good
also
there.
Kyle Dubas's first move with the Penguins there.
Yeah,
So
actually, and I
he's
mean,
off to a
why
hot
not
start.
bringing a guy fresh off a cup win? His cap hit isn't like great, but it's not like horrible. He's making somewhere between like 4 and 5 mil, right?
Yeah, I think he's making 5 mil even.
Yeah, like that's not terrible. It's not immovable if you need to get rid of it later on.
And I think he's only got like 2 years left or something. So, and obviously Pittsburgh's, they're still
In
in win now with Crosby,
Yeah,
Malkin, Letang. Like they're trying to get one more at least with that core. And Smith's a great addition to that team.
yeah. When you have the guys with the skill and the pedigree of Crosby, Malkin, Letang, uh, unless you really feel like this can't happen, we have to absolutely blow it up, like they did with the Blackhawks.
Yeah.
You got to go for it every year, and it could definitely still happen. They got enough good guys. They also got Jake Gensel. I feel like he does not get talked about as much as he should around the league. He's a really
Yeah,
good goal
no.
scorer.
And that's so crazy to think that, the Crosby Malkin duo was formed before the Taves and Kane, and both duos have won 3 cups each, and now we see one duo is completely done, and the other one, they're still trying to keep going and push for that fourth.
Yeah, it's really impressive that they've kept those three together as long as they have. I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
I saw a stat. This was quite a few months ago. It's just one of those stat pictures that like Sportsnet puts up on like their Instagram. But I think they're the trio that has played the most consecutive seasons together in the NHL at this point.
yeah, they are. Yeah, between Crosby, Malkin, Letang. Yeah.
All right.
What do you got?
We
What do you got
might.
next for us?
I got one more trade. We might just keep picking up trades as we remember them. But I cannot believe I forgot about this. But Ross Colton, Tampa
Oh,
trades him
that's right. Yeah.
from Tampa to Colorado for the 37th overall pick this
And
year.
Tampa got a pretty good player with that pick, didn't they?
Yeah, they drafted Ethan Gauthier.
Yeah.
Uh, by all accounts, he looks like he's going to be pretty good. I mean, it's hard to tell sometimes, but he kind of looks like he has that Braden Point, Brandon Hagel style of play. You know, he's a smaller, fast, skilled guy.
Well, Tampa Bay loves those guys, so that's a great fit for them.
Yeah, he was also uh he got interviewed and he was saying that he brings a lot of speed, skill, and grit to his game. And he said that everyone on the Tampa Bay subreddit was loving this next quote that he models his game after the Kachucks and Yanni Gord. And
Oh, really?
as soon as any of us hear that he models his game after Yanni Gord, it's like I will run through a wall for this man
Yeah.
because Gord was definitely
And
a
that's
fan favorite.
and that's not a very like common player for guys to be like, I want to model my game after them. You hear lots of guys being like, I really look up and try to be like Sidney Crosby
Right.
or X and Y, but like to
Yeah,
go
Eric
be like want
Carlson
to
if
be
they're
a
a
guy
defenseman or
like,
something.
Yanni Gord is that's pretty cool to see actually.
Yeah, he it's especially good to know when, guys know the kind of role that they can play for a team like that. Like, sometimes you'll hear some fourth line fringe NHLer be like, "Yeah, I try and play a lot like Patrick Kane." And it's like, well, I don't know if you can quite do that, but you can try.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, right? So that's a good pick though for the Lightning. I think he's gonna be a good player for them. Whenever he makes a transition to the NHL. But as of right now, I'd say that's a pretty even trade for both sides. I think it works out well for both.
Yeah. I think it works well for both sides. I think they're going to absolutely love Ross Colton over there in Colorado, and I considering we probably had to lose Colton anyway to just another cap casualty. I figured we'd probably get a good amount less. I figured we might get like a fourth and a fifth, or maybe a third. So to get a really high second round pick, that was pretty good.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. What do we?
All right.
I don't got any more trades, and I think I'm fresh out of them.
Yeah, I think
Kind of ran the well dry.
I'm done for that. Do we want to move on to the draft, or do we want to talk about the awards?
Um, we can kind of just brush over the awards quickly. I don't think there's too much to fully dive in, with those.
Do you think do you think it's worth cutting up into two episodes? We can do one with this stuff and the awards, and then maybe do a separate draft one, or vice versa.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. Make it easier on the listeners and not have it all jam packed. Kind of space it out a bit.
Right. All right. Let's do the draft. Well, right now, while it's fresh and we're
Well, the draft
talking
one.
about.
Yeah, because yeah, day two of the draft just wrapped up today, so it's all still nice and fresh. So it's probably best to get our immediate reactions here on um, all that went down kind of for it.
All right. So we'll probably just go through the top 10-ish, a couple other steals of the draft, and there were some shockers in this one. There
There
was
was, yeah, it
really good.
was. It did not. I'm so glad I didn't go on Twitter or anything and put out a mock draft or anything because I would have been so wrong on so many picks. So I'm very, very thankful that I held back and decided to not do that.
All right. So first we have obviously Chicago took Connor Bedard with the first overall pick.
Really?
Pretty
Wow.
pretty obvious. Everyone knew this was happening. Like
Yeah.
some things you're pretty sure about, some things you know about.
Yeah.
And we all knew they were taking Bedard.
Yeah. That one's a no-brainer. They've now got their new face of the franchise, now that they're in the post Taves Kane era, they've now got their new guy to grow with for, the next however many years. So that's a very good start to the rebuild here for Chicago.
Yeah. A lot of people were saying that this year the real draft would start at pick number 4 or 5, but it started at 2
Started
because
at two. Yep.
The
Yep.
Ducks selected Leo Carlson.
Yeah. Um. So that one to me, I was pretty shocked by it at the time. Just because again, everybody kind of thought that Adam Fantilli was going to be the second overall pick. Um, but it really sounded like Fantilli really wanted to go to Columbus. And there's another
Right.
player later on that we'll talk about, kind of the same way. I don't know if he necessarily made that apparent to Anaheim, or if it was just Anaheim was just higher on Carlson. Um, but I think between the two, I don't think you could go wrong either way. I'm sure you've got a couple players on the Ducks that are a little bit crushed that they're not getting their buddy Fantilli there, but they're still getting a phenomenal player in Leo Carlson.
Yeah, it's hard to be upset with the if you view it as a consolation prize when that guy's still Leo Carlson. Like he looks like he's going to be an absolute stud.
Oh yeah, he's going to be a big part of Anaheim's future for sure. And then Fantilli, um, like I said, he really wanted to go to Columbus, which is huge for them. Because again, like we've seen before, not many players want to stick around in Columbus and um, be there long term. So if they can get, you can almost call Fantilli kind of a franchise guy, to come in there and be their go-to guy, and he wants to stay there. Like that, that's a huge
Yeah.
steal for that franchise moving forward.
Yeah, it's always hard to, you don't want to put too much of a label on guys before they come in, but as it stands right now, it looks like he could very well be a franchise piece for them. Like not
Yeah.
just a first liner, but like, a guy that in 4 to 7 years could be contending for the Hart Trophy, things like that. Like he looks like he's going to be that good.
Yeah, and they've got the pieces in Columbus now. Like he's already got a couple buddies over there that he already knows that he's gonna get to play with. They still have Werenski, Goudreau, Line, so like Fantilli's gonna have a good group. Whether it's next season he plays for them or if it's the following one, whenever he comes over, he's gonna have a good group of guys there to play with.
Yeah, they still got Kent Johnson there from Michigan.
Yeah. Yep.
They I think following this draft, I think we're going to see absolutely meteoric rise from Columbus. I don't know if it's going to
Yeah.
be this year, but I think at some point in the next 3 years, we're going to have that breakout season for Columbus, like we saw with the Devils. They're going to
Yeah.
absolutely skyrocket.
Yeah. Yeah, it's only a matter of time before, only 8 teams get in out of the East, and three of those teams, pretty consistently are going to be New Jersey, Buffalo, and Columbus, which is something well, in the last 10, 15 years, we haven't gotten. So to think that those three teams are going to be, consistent playoff teams is going to be quite a sight to see moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. The Man, if some of the teams in the East don't start, especially the Atlantic, if they don't start falling off fairly soon, the East is going to be an absolute bloodbath if they can keep on top of their stuff and these other teams start getting the young guys into the lineup and getting much better. Like it's already crazy how good the East is right now.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then I guess you know what? I mean, they didn't draft anybody in the first round this year, but even a team like Ottawa, they're knocking on the door of getting back into the playoffs, and so the East is really going to start to become competitive here next year.
All right, at number 4, of course, we have the San Jose Sharks taking Will Smith.
Yep.
I assume you got a lot to say
Eh,
on this guy, or at least your
so
hopes for him.
obviously on Twitter, there's a lot of Sharks fans, pissed off and rah rah that like they didn't take Michkov. We knew they weren't. it was very clearly evident, in the days leading up to the draft, it was going to be Will Smith. There was really no other option. Um, kind of with Michkov, we now know he was dead set on going to Philadelphia. As crazy as that is, I don't know if he's just a big gritty fan or what, but he was dead set on playing for the Flyers. Even to the point where he told the Arizona Coyotes, I have no desire to play for your franchise. I don't want to be there. Like he was purposely tanking his draft stock to fall to 7 to go to Philly.
I tell you what,
And
Arizona might want to consider getting used to hearing that if they keep running things the way they are.
exactly, right? But Will Smith is a fantastic player. You look back at, recent draft years, the last couple ones, he probably goes in the top 2. Like he's a very good player. Um and he's exactly what the Sharks needed, and I don't think they really wanted to wait the 3 years for Michkov, and he didn't really want to go there. So I think Will Smith is a fantastic pick for them. Um, in terms of when they get him, I know he's committed to Boston College for next year. So he's at least 1 year away, might be 2, but we're just gonna kind of have to wait and see. But when he comes over and starts playing for the Sharks, he's gonna be a big part of their team moving forward.
Yeah, and that honestly, that could be a blessing in disguise. Him staying back there, it's not like San Jose is looking to be super competitive this next year. So you know what? Go and play 23, 24, 25 minutes a night in Boston and really hone your game. And when you get to the NHL, come out like gangbusters.
Yeah, exactly, right. Because you look at those guys. If he signed with San Jose and came over, where do you put him? If he's in the if he's playing in the NHL, he's third liner at most. Because you still got Couture and Hurdle, or he's in the AHL. So a year in Boston College to just improve and get better, and then when he comes over, he can be a real impact player. I think is a fantastic way to go about it for both him and the Sharks.
Yeah. I think any player, young player of a skill set and skill caliber like that, they need to make sure, unless they're, like Connor Bedard's obviously going to go straight to the NHL, but a lot of them need to be careful of rushing to the NHL because
Yeah.
if he rushed in and was on the third line, it's chances are he's not only not going to be playing with great players on the third line, but he's not going to be playing with players of his type. If they're running a checking line and you're throwing this high skilled young guy on there, it's really not going to help him grow the type of game that he wants to grow into. Like they need to be
Yeah,
ready to get into
exactly.
the first or second line as soon as they get in, unless they're, just playing a couple minutes on the fourth line and then getting some power play time or something.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think that's a great pick for the Sharks. As pissed off
Yeah.
as their fans might be that it's not Michkov, you just need to realize we all knew that he wasn't going to San Jose. That was, it was very clearly not going to happen. Will Smith is a fantastic player. So there's nothing to be upset about with that.
Yeah. I mean,
Might really
he,
fucking sting in like 5 years or so when Michkov comes over. But again, he didn't want to. He wanted to play for Philadelphia. Like, when a player dictates where they want to go, like you got to realize, even if you got him, he probably after his entry level deal, he'd probably want out anyways. So
yeah.
you
And,
take the guy who wants to be there and is still a really good player.
still a very good player. I wonder
Yeah.
how many people are looking at things like funny enough, also involves Philly, like the Eric Lindros trade. And they're like, well, if the guy doesn't want to play there, you just pick him and then trade him there. Yeah, but, how often are you going to get a trade return like the Nordiques or the Avalanche got there? Like it's
Well, and there
they
was even teams that had Michkov on their do not draft list because they had character concerns with him. And maybe that's I'm assuming that's probably teams like, you know, San Jose, Montreal, Arizona, maybe even Columbus.
Yeah,
Because we kind of knew he was going to go at least in the top 10. He wasn't going
right.
to fall further than that, especially I think Washington would have loved to take him
I think
if
Washington
he had
100% would have taken him
um
if he was
been
available.
available there. I'm really upset that Ryan Leonard didn't go to Philly though, because again, I just thought he was a perfect fit there. I thought he would have
Yeah,
been such a perfect fit for Philly. But Michkov, he's going to be a great player for them still.
yeah, absolutely. Number five, another pretty shocking pick at the time.
Yeah.
Montreal takes David Reinbacher.
Shocking pick. Carey Price forgot his name. He was so shocked when they told him who they were taking. I think he
Uh,
like stuttered because he was like, "Are we really doing this?" Like it was just I just really didn't think that that's the route Montreal was going to go down, but you know, they kind of need defense, and was the best defenseman in the draft. So, say what you
yeah,
want about it. It's what Montreal needed, so they went out and addressed it.
yeah. I think it's easy to say that oh he should have gone around 8 or 9 or something, but if he turns out to be the best defenseman out of an entire draft, like surely he's going to be at minimum a top four guy, probably a top two, right? Like
I would assume
that's hard to
so.
turn that down.
Well, and again, much like San Jose fans, I think Montreal fans were just, um, again, they just really wanted Michkov, and when they didn't get him, they were upset. But again, Michkov didn't want to go to Montreal either. So, you take what your team needs and moving forward, and Reinbacher is the perfect fit for them.
Yeah, looking at like things like when Kachuk wants out, and when guys like Line or Dubois want out, it's hard to look at something like that as a general manager and just be like, oh, maybe it'll be different for us. Like if the guy says he specifically wants to play somewhere, an Adam Fox, you just have to give someone up like that. Like that still sucks. So might as well just draft a guy who's actually going to play for you.
Exactly, right? And yeah, there's not much more to say on it. Like that's still a great pick for Montreal. Obviously, a guy like Michkov would have been great there, but you've got a guy like Cole Caulfield who's going to put up those goals for you. You don't need two of those guys. You need surrounding pieces around that, elite goal scorer.
Yeah. At sixth overall, we have the first shocking pick from Arizona, Dmitry Simashev. This
Yeah.
one, this one was wild. That was really off the board, wasn't it? Wasn't he supposed to go like 20th or something?
I I kind of had him in the um kind of the 13th overall range, I think, is where I had him kind of put.
Okay, that's not
Um,
that's not crazy early.
but again, yeah. I'm not again. Like I said, I thought Reinbacher was going to be the guy for Arizona because I kept saying they needed a defenseman. The Ekman Larson era was over. It was supposed to be Chikrin's team now. Obviously, that didn't work out. So, I think if Reinbacher was available, I think they would have went with him. But at the same time, I also don't because they took Simashev at 6, and then they also took Daniil Boot 12th, and they come from the
Yeah,
exact same team. They're already teammates and buddies. So I almost wonder if kind of that's the reason they went with Simashev at 6 is because they wanted those two guys who already have that connection, that friendship, and bring them over kind of together. Much similar to the way that when San Jose traded back last year, at the tail end of the first round, they took Philip Beested, and then early in the second round with the other pick they got, they took Matthias Havland. Again, a forward and a defenseman, both from the same team, and now it looks like they're bringing both of them over next year to kind of stay together and continue to build that chemistry between the two.
Yeah, I definitely think that once they took one, they were like, we have to take the other. I don't know if you saw it, but there was a really good video going around of Simashev. He was getting interviewed, and then while pick number 12 was being brought up to the stage, and they asked him who he thought was going to get drafted. And he clearly didn't want to just like outright say someone random. And so he was like, oh, I don't know, probably someone else from my team. And they're like, well, who do you think from your team? And he said Daniil Boot. He said he's called his shot. He was like, this guy's really good. Maybe they snag him. And he looked really happy to see him get drafted.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so cool seeing that connection between the players. Just kind of noteworthy in the third round. Just a few picks apart, Columbus took William Whitelaw, and then like 6 picks later, the Sharks took Brandon. I don't even know how to pronounce his last name. Svoboda. Svoboda. I'm assuming that's how it goes.
That sounds close.
He was doing Svoboda was doing his interview with the media, and then Whitelaw came over in the middle to give him like a big hug and hype him up because they're good buddies, play on the same team. So it's exciting for these guys to be drafted together. And even right in the middle, Montreal took Jacob Fowler. So 3 good buddies who have played together for a couple of years, just rapid fire, boom, boom, boom. 3 of them are now drafted to the NHL. So that's a pretty cool moment for those 3 guys as well.
Yeah, that's good. I hadn't heard about that one.
Yeah, I saw a video. I was like, that's just so cool to see that relationship between the players and see the excitement they have for each other. It's just great to see. They've worked their whole lives to get to this moment, and for it to pay off for not only them but their close buddies. All together, like that's got to be such a great feeling for them.
Yeah, there was a couple guys that were interviewed, and they were, the people asking them the questions are like, "Did you think this would ever happen?" And the guy, literally, the question before had just said, "Well, yeah, I've been playing high level hockey since I was like 5 or 6, and like my family moved here for a better hockey system when I was 11." And it's like, did you ever think you'd get drafted? It's like, I get that they do have to just kind of, those are the questions you need to ask, but like he kind of was like, "Oh yeah, well it's incredible," but his eyes kind of said, "Well, yeah, I better get fucking drafted. I've been planning on this for a long time."
Exactly, right? Yeah. But yeah, I mean that's again going back to Arizona with Simashev. That's what they needed. It's exactly what they got. So it was a kind of an off the board pick, but it did address what the team needed. So
yeah, and that could be a really, really good way to start up a new young core with a rebuilding team with 2 guys who not only look like they're going to be good, but know each other coming in.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, so at 7, finally we get here. The Philadelphia Flyers take Matvei Michkov.
Yeah, and it would have been. I really, really just wish that he didn't have those 3 years left on his KHL deal. Like, I really wish he could have been able, boom, right away to come to the NHL, because I would have loved to see how the first round would have played out.
Yeah.
Obviously we knew Bedard was still going 1, but then, like, does Michkov go 2 to Anaheim? And then at that point, then what does Columbus do? What does San Jose do? And so on and so forth.
I find it hard to believe he'd drop out of the top 3 if he was coming over this year. I honestly think he'd go number 2. I think he'd have to. He looks really
Anaheim
good.
Would have got Michkov. I think Columbus still would have taken Fantilli. And then that's, I think, where the draft really heats up, because I don't know whether San Jose would have, still went with Will Smith or Leo Carlson. I think they probably take Carlson.
I would guess so, but
I think
hard
on the
to tell.
soul,
It sounds like they were high on Smith.
Yeah, and again, it's like, I don't know how much teams fully look into it, or maybe it's just me, but San Jose's biggest prospect right now, aside from Will Smith now coming up, is William Eklund, Swedish player. So I wonder if they would have looked at the route of, another Swede and Carlson, kind of bringing him in and pairing the two together, if that's something that, would have been on their mind. We'll never know, but it would have been so exciting to just see how the top five would have played out if Michkov was able to come over right away.
Yeah, that it's too bad that he has to drop that low, but I mean, once he comes over, I think he's going to be absolutely incredible. Do you think he does stay over there for the entire 3 years?
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, he's made it very clear that his goal, his heart is set on coming to the NHL and competing with the best of the best. I don't like maybe the NHL can find a way to work something out to get him out of his deal. But right now, I firmly believe that he is going to have to finish out those 3 years over in Russia. Could
Yeah,
very well change, but I think that's probably what's going to end up happening.
yeah, I think with everything going on in Russia, it might be very difficult. But if a decent opportunity arises, it's hard to tell. Some people, they're not super close with their family. Some people have massive sprawling families, right? So, and that's just unfortunately a conversation you have to have when it's like, does he just want to kind of ditch and come over here? Well, he could, but does that put his family in danger? So,
Yeah,
if that's the
yeah,
case,
it's
are
tough.
you ready to, at the drop of a hat, move your whole family over here? Or are you just gonna wait it out a few years? And I mean, so he'll come to the NHL at what, 21, 22? Like, he'll still
Yeah.
have so many years here.
Oh yeah. And then not only that, he's, already an elite player over there in the KHL. Give him 3 more years, he's going to come over even better, and he's going to be on his entry level deal for the next 3 years.
Oh my God, I hadn't
So
even
you're
thought of
getting a
that.
you're getting a phenomenal player for 3 years on his entry level deal. Like,
Yeah, knowing that you're
so
gonna get a
Philly's got
franchise
kind of
player,
that, kind of
like,
3 year window to set it up for that.
yeah, that's actually really interesting. I never thought of that. That they know he's coming over in 3 years, and they know they're gonna get a franchise player getting at least close to his prime. Like, the how often do you know you're getting that type of player in that time? Like, they can sell the farm now and start building up prospects to be good at that point. They can build everything around being good in 2 to 3 years. And then as soon as it happens, like, they're ready to go.
Yeah, and it's just going to be very interesting because we're already seeing, you know, Chicago kind of setting up their team the way they want to build it around Bedard. And he's going to be playing there. We're now going to be seeing Philadelphia build, the team around Michkov, but they don't even have him playing there yet. They're building the team for when he eventually gets there.
Yeah. And then when he does get there, they get him at league min for 3 years. That'll be really interesting to see if they can put together a decent team before then.
Yeah, that it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out for Philly there.
All right. At eighth overall, the Washington Capitals take Ryan Leonard.
Could have been a
This
flyer,
is
but it's a great pick for Washington.
absolutely. I mean, with between Reinbacker and Simishev, it's kind of wild that he was still available at eight. Like, there was nobody else that they could realistically take, really.
Yeah, and giving out you know, kind of draft awards, if I had to pick a player um from the draft who I could say has the most like dog in them, it would be Ryan Leonard. Like this dude he's such a good player. He plays such a great style of hockey. Like there's just so many good things to say about him.
Yeah,
He's
imagine
just such
imagine
like
putting this guy centering Tom Wilson. Like, that'd just be disgusting.
I think he's a winger, Leonard. But I mean,
Oh, is he?
still he's a right winger.
Oh yeah, right winger.
But I mean, still if you can, even if you've got Tom Wilson on one line, Leonard on the other, that's still two tough guys to go up against and play against. So
Yeah, that's ruthless.
yeah, like that's a great pick for Washington. Not a whole lot to send it other than really just a phenomenal great pick for them. Like I think he's going to be a great player for them for a long time.
All right. For a bit of symmetry's sake, we'll go through the rest of the top 10, although from here I definitely know a little bit less about these guys. Ninth overall, Detroit takes Nate Danielson.
Again, yeah, this is an interesting because we talked before. I really thought that this pick was going to be traded.
Yeah,
I thought maybe someone was going to be, done that. What was it? I think we talked about maybe Detroit going after a guy potentially like UC Saros, I think to solidify their goaltending. But now
yeah,
it was very clear that Saros was not on the block. It was Askarov instead. Um, but this was a great pick for Detroit. I think, yeah. So Danielson here, he was the second guy drafted from the WHL. He's a pretty tall
yeah,
guy. He's 6'2". Like he puts up great points. I don't know his play style as well as the other guys, but he's a great center who he kind of looks like he can do it all. He's probably I would say give him 2 years before he makes a jump to the NHL. But when he does, he's going to be a great addition to that center core for Detroit behind Larkin.
yeah. I think he looks like he's going to be pretty good. Uh, just jump on to what you were saying about the Predators. I was shocked to hear that they were looking to trade Askarov because I'm hearing a lot of conflicting reports around of like Nashville. Obviously look at some of the moves that Trotz has already made. They want to go towards a rebuild, but then also there's quite a few people who are like they're looking to get good now. They want to try and stay competitive while they have Roman Yossi. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see what they do the rest of this offseason.
Yeah, and it came out earlier today that Nashville had originally included Askarov in a package with other pieces. I'm not sure what they were. I'm assuming the 15th overall pick would have been involved, or maybe even the 24th, which Nashville also had, um, to try and move up to 4, make a trade with San Jose for 4, or Montreal for number 5.
Yeah,
Um, Actually, just another trade there that we didn't touch on. San Jose did trade a 6th round pick for the RFA rights for Mackenzie Blackwood from the Devils, which
oh
I think for
right.
San Jose, I think that's a great trade.
I
Um,
mean, a sixth round pick,
like
why not?
Blackwood's, he's got skill. Like he's a good goalie. It's just the injury problems have really gotten to him. Um, and you know what? To take a risk on a guy that could maybe be a good goalie for you for the next 10 years is worth a 6th round pick. I don't know if it's gonna pan out, but then getting a guy like Askarov made no sense for them. Montreal, I could
Yeah,
kind of see it, but like we said, they really needed to address that hole on their defense, and so they had to go with getting a
yeah,
defenseman high in the draft there.
yeah, absolutely. I think, it's definitely hard to get the Shesterkins, the Vasilevskis right about now, but it's not too incredibly hard if you have the trade pieces to at least get yourself a serviceable starter. So
Yeah,
I definitely think getting a good solid defenseman was probably the way to go
yeah, for
for
sure.
Montreal.
And then to round out the top 10, who did St. Louis take again? Dvorsky, was
Dalibor
it?
Dvorsky.
Dvorsky, yeah. Again, I don't know too much about him. I had him. Um, Actually, I think that's kind of right around where I had him going around in the 10 spot. I think he's a very skilled centerman. I think he's going to be one of those guys again that I think takes a couple years to come over, but when he does, he's going to be a good solid centerman for the Blues. As they're very clearly now in the rebuild. or
Yeah,
maybe
it's
retooling if that's the way they're doing it.
yeah, I would call it a bit of a retool since they haven't traded too many of their young players yet. Like they still clearly have quite a few guys there that they want to build the team around. Like
Yeah,
Rob Thomas, Jordan Kyrou. But they're
yeah.
definitely looking to change the direction the team has been for the last 2 years.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
All right.
Any more notable picks in the first round that you wanted to touch up on here?
Just a few in the teens here. I know you were pretty high on Buffalo's pick of Zach Benson
Yeah,
at
that was
13th
a
overall.
yeah, like again, we talk about Buffalo. They're really starting to take off as a team, and this doesn't, we saw them last year really make a push and show that they're um ready to take that next step. They're right on the cusp of getting back into the playoffs. And I mean, like I'm just pulling it up here because it's just mind blowing. Like, when you look at their core, they've got now like on defense, they've got Owen Power and Dolly, and you've got
That's
your two
solid.
studs on
Like
the blue line for the next 15 years. Up front, you've got Alex Tuck, who's really turned into just a beast for them. Tage Thompson, Dylan Cousins, to just name a few. And then you still got, you know, um, all these great prospects like Jack Quinn,
Jack Quinn,
JJ
Peyton Krebs.
Paterka, Isaac Rosen. And then even last year, they had 3 first round picks where they got Matthews. How do you pronounce
Savoy?
that? Savoy? Savoy,
Yeah,
yeah. And Matthew Savoy played with Zach Benson in Winnipeg last year. And then they also have Noah Ostland and Yuri Kulich. So like they're right on the cusp of making the playoffs, and you've got so many great young prospects coming up. Like they're gonna have to make some crazy moves because they don't have room for all these guys. Like
yeah. Not to
they have
mention
such
Devin
a
Levi in net.
I didn't even,
Like
yeah
they
I
got
didn't even, yeah like
like they also got the goalie locked in. Like you give these guys a couple years to grow, they're gonna be a mean looking team.
yeah it's I just love the way that Buffalo's been just building and growing this team, over recent years, and it's holy shit, is it going to pay off pretty dang soon for them. Also, even you know
Yeah.
what, Casey Middlestat, I've kind of shit on him, in previous years, but last year, I mean, just had a breakout year, 59 points in 82 games. Like, if he's the real deal, like he was drafted 8th overall, if he can be a legit 8th overall pick, I mean, like watch out for Buffalo. Like they're going to be a scary team pretty soon here. And Zach
Yeah.
Benson just really adds on to that for them.
The only other one I really wanted to talk about was Braden Yeager going to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Did you see at 14th overall he went to them? Did you see the video of him getting a call from Crosby
I
backstage?
did, yeah, yeah. That's awesome. And you know, whether you're a Flyers fan, a Capitals fan, whoever, you can't hate Sidney Crosby, man. The guy just
Dude, he's impossible to
oozes
hate.
oozes pure class. Um, as great as he's been for as long as he has, he's never gotten that ego or anything. He's always been so humble, like just an all
Yeah.
around great guy. And what a great way to just you know really make a guy like Yager feel at home.
Yeah, the that video is so wild because he's so not expecting it. He's standing there talking to like some reporter, and there's a couple other suits listening to them talk, and then some dude just kind of pushes through, holding a phone out. He's just, "Hey, Sidney Crosby's on the phone. He wants to talk to you." And this guy's like,
Yeah,
"What the fuck? I'm just standing here talking to these people. I don't know what's going on. I just had like one of the crazy experiences of my life getting drafted out there." and you just walk up to me with a phone saying Sid's on the line. Like that had to be so surreal.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, like that would have been like that must have been just such a cool moment for him, and really just make him feel just so much more at ease, and knowing you got a guy like Sidney Crosby in your corner rooting for you and excited for you is just got to mean the world to him.
Yeah. I mean, especially with a team like Pittsburgh, you get drafted there. One of your first
Yeah.
thoughts has to be, dude, this is Crosby's team. I'm gonna be in Sidney Crosby's locker room. So to be backstage like 10 minutes later and already, somebody's like, hey, he's calling, he wants to talk to you personally. That's gotta be so cool. Like the first time he meets him, he's already gotta be like feeling like this guy's so fucking cool. Like
Yeah.
this guy actually cares and he like is building or has built over the past 15 years an insane culture.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Even one thing, just talking about Braden Yeager, for anyone who just loves hockey content in general, if you're on social media a lot, check out a guy named Mike Bartner. He's an Islanders fan, but he does just hockey content in general. Phenomenal stuff. He made a video which I thought was really interesting. Because we've kind of seen now, especially right now more than ever, with Calgary and Winnipeg, where we're not seeing players who want to stay there. Like
Yeah.
there's just not a desirable market for a lot of players. A lot of guys just don't want to commit there. And he brought up the idea of like, a guy like Braden Yeager, do they make a move to try and maybe move up in the draft and get a guy? Because Yeager, so he plays for the Moose Jaw Warriors, but he's actually from Saskatoon, so kind of right in the middle between Calgary and Winnipeg. And he brought up the idea of like, do you make a big move to try and go out and get a guy like him who's from the area, so you've got a better chance of him really wanting to stick around long term.
Right.
And I was like, that I would have been very curious to see if Jaeger fell a few more picks, if Calgary or Winnipeg would have gotten him, and how that would have looked, in years down the road. Because I guess another trade, even we totally forgot, Tyler Toffoli got traded to New Jersey for Sharon Govich and a third.
Yeah.
Like Calgary's top goal scorer and point guy last year for a third line player and a third round pick. Like that's like it's that would have been cool to see how that would have progressed if kind of a more local guy was with one of those two teams. How that would have progressed in the future if he would have been more open to signing an 8-year deal and really committing himself to one of those franchises.
Yeah. That would definitely be interesting move to see because that might be how teams like Calgary and the Jets and those, they might have to start looking at things. Like they've just been like decent but middling for so long, and they're not getting the high enough draft picks to get better. Like they're kind of both doing what Minnesota has done for the 10 years before they had Kaprizov come in.
Yeah.
The only difference being it's also cold as fuck up here. I mean, it's not exactly warm in Minnesota, but it seems like a
Yeah.
lot of players are more inclined to go to not Canadian markets.
Yeah, for sure. Just also something that I thought was just kind of a fun little tidbit of trivia here. Um, so with that Toffoli trade, the Flames traded Toffoli for Sharon Govich and a third round pick this year, which was 80th overall.
Right.
So that draft pick originally belonged to the Calgary Flames. They traded
Oh.
it last year to Seattle at the deadline for Calle Yarncroc. And then last offseason, it got traded to Columbus for Oliver Bjorkstrand. Then it got traded just a couple weeks ago to the New Jersey Devils for Damon Severson. And now it got traded back to Calgary for in part of that Tyler Toffoli trade. So
That's wild.
in a little bit over a year, that draft pick bounced from It started with the Flames, bounced through 3 different teams, and ended up back with Calgary just days before the draft.
That's kind of wild because out of all those players you named, I would say like only Cal Yarncroke really is a guy that I would trade for a third round pick. The rest of those guys are kind of better than a third round pick's worth
I
of
think
value.
I think
I know
Oliver
a lot of them are.
Bjorkstrand, I think there was more involved.
Yeah, I think Bjorkstrand was a bit of a, I believe, a cap dump in that situation, or
Yeah.
maybe I'm thinking about somebody else.
It
But
was a
you
cap
know
dump.
that there's that. Severson was clearly on the way out. That was just for his rights.
Yeah.
Toffoli doesn't want to resign, so there's definitely outside factors. But considering
Yeah.
it's the third round pick, it was involved in a lot of trades with pretty good players.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I was just curious, so I just pulled up uh, your Sharon Govich's stats here.
Yep.
Honestly, I don't know if this is as bad of a trade for Calgary as people think it is. I definitely think they could have got more, but 2 years ago, he had in 76 games, he had 24 goals and 46 points, which isn't bad
But
at all.
he,
And then
he was
last year he
playing with
had,
Hughes at the time.
oh, okay.
Yeah. I
So
looked it up that first
was
year.
he
He
on
was
the
he was
third line this year?
yeah. He might have even been
Okay.
down to the fourth line, honestly. But I
Well, I
know
mean,
that
if he was on
his
the fourth
first
line,
year
that'd be
when
pretty good numbers.
I know his first year when
30
he put up
goals,
good numbers, he was
not
playing
30
with
goals, 30
Jack
points.
Hughes.
Right. Yeah, 75 games, 30 points with only 13 goals this past year. So, definitely a step down. So that would explain it, not playing with Hughes. But that's that's definitely a guy that I think has some talent and could if he's playing with the right players, he could be good. I've also heard that he's a great penalty killer. I haven't I definitely haven't seen too much of him playing uh personally, but I've heard that he's a good penalty killer as well.
He is a good penalty killer guy. Like he'll be a good, you know, again, like third liner for Calgary. Like if you've got a guy like Sharon Govich in your top six, that's not really great for a team trying to compete for the cup.
Yeah.
Um, not to say he's a bad player, but he's not what a Tyler Toffoli was for you.
Yeah,
Um,
he's really one of those
yeah.
guys that where you play him in the lineup kind of shows what team you are. If you've got him in the top six, it's kind of like maybe you're in a rebuild or you're trying to get back up to that compete level. And if he's on your third line, it's like, okay, maybe this is a team with some depth.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think I just got one more pick here really to kind of cover before I think I'm good with kind of wrapping it
Yep.
up here.
Yep.
Um,
Go for it.
so the Toronto Maple Leafs. So for anyone who doesn't know, so Brad Treliving wasn't allowed to join Toronto for the draft until Calgary made their pick at 16. So after Calgary made their pick at 16, then Treliving was able to hop in with Toronto and start grinding out, what they're gonna do and any moves that they might want to make.
Was Tree Living
And
with Calgary at the draft? Like, was he sitting with them, or was he just not allowed to until they were
no,
done?
no, yeah, because he's already been fired. Like he's already with Toronto. He just because Calgary didn't want him like leaking any of their plans that they've talked about throughout the season. So he had to wait until Calgary made their pick before he could join. Um, so I don't know what he was doing. Maybe just sitting in a back room, just hanging out, waiting.
Yeah, sitting in the green
Um,
room.
so Toronto took Easton Cowan from the London Knights, which from pretty much everybody I've seen who, throws out grades for the draft gave this pick. I think the highest I saw was a D, and it got all the way down to an F
Ooh.
minus because it was just such a reach, such an out of the blue pick. Not to say he's a bad player, but there was so much more potential on the table for Toronto to take.
So they took
Which
him in the first. Was it in the first round or second?
yeah, 28th overall, which was the pick they got from Boston in the Sandine trade.
Oh man, and you got dude. Sandine was good. You got to try and hit with that pick.
Yeah. And so now, which brings me to the point that I think is really interesting. because it kind of goes back to Brad Treliving from Toronto to Calgary, and kind of his drafting history. Um, so the Calgary Flames, since the 2017 draft, so from 2017 up to this year, but not including the 2023 draft. So that's 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So six drafts. The
Yeah.
Calgary Flames drafted 29 players throughout those 6 years.
Quite a few players.
29 players. Between those players, how many NHL games do you think they played combined? All 29 of those players in the NHL.
NHL games played. Okay, well, surely at least like 3 or 4 of them have made it. I mean, you'd like to think more. Uh, I'm gonna go with like 200, but like I feel like it should definitely be more.
You ready for the number?
Yeah.
You're going to think this is bullshit, by the way.
I was worried that I did that thing where I like put my number way too low, and you're like, "Oh, well, yeah, it is like 200, but you should have guessed like 800 or something." Like I think 200 is already low, but like that's what I figure it like it's probably around.
Sorry. It's not counting the 2017 draft. So after that year, moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, it
But
should
still,
still
but
be.
still, 29 players.
Yeah, it should still be around like 200. That's a lot of guys.
26.
26 games.
Are you ready for
How
for
many
the
different players?
3? And 24 of them are by Jacob Peltier, and the other 2 is Matt Coronado and Dustin Wolf. Each
And
played
Dustin Wolf.
one game, which was at the very end of this past season against San Jose.
Great game to be at. Chris Sutter's a legend.
20. Oh, is he ever? I hope he sticks around. Chris Sutter, if you're listening, please stick around for the Flames. You're better than Harvey the Hound at hyping the crowd up, and it's not even close.
He's more of a reason to go than the Flames on ice product at this point. And I don't even
You
think
ain't
that's a
wrong.
bad thing. I don't even think that's a burn on the on ice product. I think he's just that
No.
entertaining.
Yeah, but like 29 players, you've got 26 games out of them so far, but 24 is from one singular player. So again, it brings up the topic of like, is that poor drafting by Treliving and his guys that he had there, or is it poor development?
I was gonna say because
the Flames, like
if I draft a good young player, and I don't know what the quality of these players have been, but if I draft a good young player and then my coach is Daryl Sutter, I'm probably fairly reluctant to want to bring him up. Like,
and
I
don't
wonder if we're going to
it's-
see like 4 or 5 rookies come up and get a chance with the team now.
yeah,
This next year, and we'll actually get to see what the prospect pool and some of these fringe NHL guys or some of their better AHL players what they look like.
yeah, and I don't think it's got anything to do with Calgary's development, because I mean, Dustin Wolf was a 7th-round pick, and now he's probably arguably the best goalie prospect in the NHL right now. So
I don't even know if it's arguably at this point. Hasn't he won like AHL goalie of the year 2 years in a row? Like,
yeah, I think he literally
Like,
just won
that's-
MVP, did he not?
yeah, he's got a shocking amount of accolades considering he's played that one NHL game, which he looked good in.
Yeah, like he, yeah, like there's
Yeah,
not much
they're
more to say.
gonna
Like
have to
he's,
move out Vladar for him for room.
yeah, but I mean, but then now look at Treliving though. He's now with Toronto, and he makes another pick that's pretty head scratching for a lot of people. So
Yeah, and who
It's-
knows? Maybe in 5 years we're going, "Wow, what a galaxy brain genius!" But
yeah, exactly.
it doesn't happen
Could
too
still
often.
very well be a great player, but like just when you look at some of the guys that were still available at that time, it makes you wonder, like, is that really really the guy? But I mean, you never know, right?
Yeah, a lot of people they want to say things like, uh, was was this pick, good at this time, but also, draft picks are magic beans. You don't know what you're getting, right? But, we all look
Exactly.
back on at the same time, we all look back at Boston in 2015 and we're like, even back then we knew, geez, probably take Barzell, probably, take Kyle Connor, all those guys who went like right afterwards that
You know what
people
the
knew
funny
they were
thing
good.
is? Do you know what the funny thing is? Is I
What's that?
can is so like there's a feature with Twitter where you can go back and like you can type in a search bar and you can bring up your old tweets and whatnot.
Yeah.
I think it was like 5 or 6 tweets back in 2015 during the draft, like just screaming and praying that at ninth overall the Sharks would have taken Barzell, which they ended up taking Timo Meyer, who was still a phenomenal pick. But like I was so sure that they were going to take Barzell with that pick at number 9, and then I was
Oh,
shocked he
that's
fell
interesting.
all the way down to 16.
Yeah. Man, like, God, can you imagine the Boston team? Like, they just won 65 games this year. Like, could you imagine if that team had some of the talent that was in
Well,
that draft and still available?
the
They
three
wouldn't be able
picks
to keep
taken
them all, but
afterwards, the 3 picks right after was Kyle Connor, Barzell, and Shabbat. Like,
yeah, even if they like take immediately those three, like
yeah,
that team would be absolutely nuts.
they would have had they would have at least won the cup in over the Blues that year.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Under
don't know
the
exactly where the team would
assumption,
be at now, but because
yeah,
again, you would
under
have
the
had to pay those
assumption that
guys,
they,
and
still get those players like the team now, but they have those
yeah,
players instead of Zach Senyshyn or whoever.
yeah,
It's
they
hard.
ended up
It's hard to
trading
look
for
back and be
nothing.
like, what exactly would the team look like? Because then you get into cap implications, and then well, if they had him, he would have been good, so they'd have to trade somebody else. So it's hard to
Exactly
look at
right.
it too realistically.
Yeah, because there would have been a lot of moving pieces, but like what always Boston fans are always gonna wonder what could have been.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think it just kind of based on what if you had to pick a winner from the draft, who would you pick? Like just a team.
It's it's gotta be hard not to go with Columbus. Having
Hey,
a
me too. Yeah,
having
that's
a
what I
guy
picked.
like Fantilli drop to you at third is wild. Like there's a reason you go online and everyone in Columbus is so freaking excited, and everyone in Anaheim is like nervously excited. Like,
Yeah.
God, I hope
Well,
Carlson's gonna be good, but I hope Fantilli doesn't make us really regret this.
and even
Uh,
going to what we talked about before, teams taking 2 players. They took Fantilli third overall, and then their first pick they had in the second round, they took Gavin Brindley, who also played for Michigan with Fantilli.
there you go. And I bet they both know Kent Johnson and whoever else they have. Like
Yep.
they have a lot of good looking
Oh,
prospects too. Sillinger and Juracek.
yeah. Even
That's going to be a good
their
team.
even their third round pick Whitelaw and their fourth round pick Straman, they're both from the same team in the USHL, the Youngstown Phantoms. So, and then they also took a really good player in Luca Pinelli in the fourth round. So,
Yeah,
like,
that'll. I think that's an underratedly important thing to try and obviously don't dismantle your team for it, but getting teams with good chemistry already before they even get into the league,
yeah.
like
Um,
that could be huge.
and the guy they took with their first pick in the fourth round, Andrew Strathman, he's a defenseman. But they were talking about it during the draft. One of his talks, because kind of one of the common like questions players are asked, before the draft, whatnot, is, if for whatever reason, if hockey doesn't turn out to be a professional career for you, what would you want to be? And this
Yeah.
guy said, I want to be a surgeon. So, you know, that's you got a pretty smart guy there you just drafted on defense. Also,
Yeah.
these guys don't get love, so I'm going to do it. Shout out to actually Columbus traded their 7th round pick next year, I believe, to Vegas for the final pick in the draft this year, 224th overall. And they took Tyler Pedal, who was actually still there at the draft. Like he waited throughout all of, day one, all of day two to finally be drafted with the very last
Yo,
pick. So shout out to him as well.
that's got to be so
'Cause you always
cool.
got to show love
He
to
didn't
those
go up on
guys.
stage, right? They probably don't do the whole stage
No,
thing for
he
like the
just
draft.
walks down and shakes hands with the guys, throws a jersey on, and goes about
Hey,
his
that's still pretty
business.
cool.
Yeah, because there's lots of guys who, um, kind of leave and then they just get a call from their agent, be like, "Hey, like, you got drafted," but he stuck it out all the way till the very ending. Like, got rewarded with being drafted there right at the end. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I
Did
would
you
give
hear
Columbus
about
the big winner.
for sure? Did you hear about David Poyle's last trade as a GM?
No, I didn't. I did
Um,
not.
I'm gonna try and remember the names. Never mind. I found an article. Uh, so he traded David Poyle traded the Predators 7th rounder for next year.
Yeah.
For this year's 7th rounder from the Devils. Trade between him, David Poyle, and Tom Fitzgerald, who was a player that Poyle drafted like I think it was like 29 years ago
Oh,
in the seventh
yeah,
round when he
that's
was a
right.
GM.
Yeah.
And now that guy has gone through his career and is now a GM of another team. And so, going out, they just swapped 7th rounders
Yeah.
to
Oh,
for that
that's
to be his
cool.
last trade. That was cool. I really like that.
As much as I like that, the one I wish happened more is we saw so today Patrick Hornquist announced his retirement from hockey because he suffered 2 more concussions this year.
Ooh,
And because again, like talking about the very last pick of the draft, I thought that would have been cool if Poyle's final trade would have been just trading future considerations for Hornquist, so he could have retired as a member of the Predators, and then coming back and the guy Poyle took a chance on with the very final pick, um, in whatever year, I think it was like 2005 or six or something like that. To bring him back so he could retire as a Predator would have been kind of cool. But I also like that one
yeah,
of trading with a guy that he drafted who's now a GM. That's a very cool finish to his career.
yeah. And I mean, like somebody had to make a trade at some point. My God, nobody made a trade on day one of the draft.
That was
That's
the
when
first
is the
time
last time that's happened?
I think 2005 or six or something. They're saying maybe 2007. Like it's been a
Yeah,
while since there was not a single trade at all on day one.
yeah. Like, and it's too bad because I mean, obviously, business. You can't make trades if you don't have trades to make. But it sucks. Everyone's watching. And wanting to hear, Bettman or whoever go up front and say there has been a trade.
Yeah,
When they had the draft in Montreal, people were in the crowd absolutely lost their minds when he first announced that there had been a trade.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just for the sheer entertainment value, it would have been nice. But
Yeah,
if they don't got
exactly,
to
right.
trade, they don't got to trade, I suppose.
Yeah, but I think that kind of wraps up our kind of coverage of the draft here, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, that was a good little short episode we planned on doing.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah,
Just
that's
just
that's how
two
it goes.
just two things I want to quickly plug in for everybody to kind of watch because as we know on Saturday now here, free agency begins in the NHL. I feel if they're gonna happen, which it seems like it's very clear they are, we are gonna see probably at least two monster trades happen. Because I believe that's probably when we're gonna see Alex DeBrincat get traded
Right.
and Erik Karlsson.
You think it's
'Cause
going to happen that soon?
well, so if you think about it though, teams have their cap space that they got to work with on day one of free agency. But you need to know what you're working with. So you can't go out and sign, player A, B, and C, and then you've got no cap space to work with for potential trade for, DeBrincat, who's, gonna want however much, and then Karlsson, however much gets retained. It's still gonna be a lot of money on Karlsson regardless. So these teams are gonna have to, they could even happen tomorrow for all we know, on the Friday beforehand. But teams are going to have to make those moves for those guys and know then, the cap, like their salary and how much they're paying them and how much that affects their cap. So they know what they're working with when signing, whatever free agents they have their eyes on.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. It
I think
just
I think if
it
we know, DeBrincat's getting traded regardless.
Yeah,
It sounds like an Erik Karlsson
100%.
trade is like 99% sure going to happen. He's made it very clear he wants to,
He
win
wants to
now
compete.
while
He wants to get a
and it's
cup.
not going to
Like,
happen with the
you can't
Sharks the
fault
next
it.
couple years. And you can't blame the guy at all. So I feel like, we're going to see those trades happen sooner rather than later, I think.
Yeah, and I like to hope that he doesn't regret signing that extension in San Jose, because as much as people talk about his time there not being good or being a waste or something, I mean, they made the finals in, what was it, 2016, 2017?
Well, Karlsson wasn't on the team at the time.
Was he not? I thought they had him that year. I thought
No,
that was the year they traded for him.
no. So the year they got him, they went to, and I still say it, they probably win the cup that year. Their first year with Karlsson, which was the year they lost to the Blues in um the Western Conference final. But I believe it was like they just had so many injuries. Like Pavelski was out. I think even Karlsson wasn't able to play the final couple games. Like they just had so many injuries on that team of so many big players that like
Yeah.
there wasn't much hope for the team at that point. Um, so it made sense for him to sign at the time, but now looking at it, it's like yikes for him. But I have a feeling he's
But
going to get moved
hindsight's
to
2020.
exactly. I think he's going to get moved to a destination that he wants to go to. Um, I've heard. I really don't think it's going to happen. I'm like 99% sure it won't.
I think I know what you're gonna say, but go
But
for it.
there's rumors that, well, he's already said he's fine going back to Columbus, or not Columbus. Sorry, fuck Ottawa, because that's where he grew up as a young NHLer. He's got lots
Yeah.
of family there, so it's like, do you see like a Carlson for DeBrincat swap? Maybe, but it sounds like DeBrincat's pretty set on going to Detroit or Dallas. So probably won't happen, but it's something to keep an eye on, that maybe DeBrincat's part of a package going back to, maybe you see a
That'd
three-team
be a huge
trade.
trade.
Maybe you see like Carlson ends up in Ottawa, DeBrincat ends up in Detroit or Dallas, and then San Jose's kind of that third team that gets,
That
stuff
just
back
gets
for maybe both
all
of
the
them,
picks,
like
all the prospects for to
exactly
facilitate
right.
it.
So
Yeah.
it's something to keep an eye on over the next couple of days, and if it all happens or not, which would be really cool to
Yeah,
see if a
that'd be
three-team
interesting.
trade happens. That
Yeah.
probably, I mean, if DeBrincat and Karlsson are involved, that's probably got to be like the biggest three-team trade ever, I would say. It's got to be
Yeah,
up there at least.
it definitely got to be up there. I can't think. It's hard to specifically think of three-team trades, but that aren't just retention, at least.
Yeah,
But
exactly right.
yeah, it would. That would be an absolute blockbuster. I've heard some people say, and there's no way, but I've heard that people say that Toronto's interested in him, and like I get
Yeah.
why they would want him, but
Makes
dude,
no
you think
sense.
Dude, you think people are upset about the money the big four are making? Yeah, let's add Eric Carlson and his contract to
Not
that. Like, even if
not
he's
only
great for them, that's that's too much money, man. They already
not only
have the issue of
that,
too many
but
contracts.
yeah, but not only that, once July 1st starts, they can sign Matthews and Nylander to extensions. They're both going to get a pay raise, especially Nylander. And then the following summer, then they can crack down on extensions with Tavares and Marner. So it's like you bring in Carlson, you've got a very, very realistic chance at winning the cup um next year. But after that, like you're in cap
Yeah,
hell. And not only that, to
absolutely.
make the numbers work, San Jose would have to retain a decent amount of Carlson's contract, but that's for another
And
4 years. So you're gonna have to give up like a
that
lot.
that doesn't come cheap.
It
No.
does not come cheap. No. If San Jose
No.
was to retain even 2 mil, he's still sitting at $9 million, right? So it's like
Yeah, it's a
Toronto
lot.
just makes no sense. But I've heard that Dallas and Carolina are sniffing around, and like a Carlson Burns reunion in Carolina would be kind of sick. But like
It
we
would be
also
super
know
cool.
they don't necessarily work together because they're both the number one
They
right-handed
have to be
offensive
the guy.
defenseman.
Yeah.
Like, Carlson, look at it. Carson's first year without Burns. Fucking 100
100
points, Norris
points.
Trophy. Like,
You can't argue with the results. I
you
was
just
I was talking to my wife about it earlier, either earlier today or yesterday. But she was wondering if, is there a chance in any world where if other teams retain, if we get Carlson in Tampa, and even if, San Jose for some reason retained 50% and another team retained another 50% and we could make it cap wise work. Like, yeah, we just have too many good defensemen. He has to be the number one guy wherever he's going.
and also that I just I mean more about what Tampa Bay's kind of got in the system. I don't even know if Tampa's got the resources to give up for a guy like Carlson,
It
especially with salary retained.
No, I mean, could they
Like
literally make it work? Probably. It would definitely
realistically,
involve some roster players.
it,
It would
I
have
would
to, but
think it would have to start probably with Hagel. I think.
yeah.
I
And
think
see,
Hagel would have
that's
to
where our
be kind of
conversation ends
one
as well,
of the
right?
pieces.
Like,
Yeah, because I think Hagel is probably going to be a big part of Tampa's, future moving forward.
yeah, I
So
cannot wait
I just don't
for
see
July
it.
1st. I want to see him resign that day. And God, I hope it's for a good deal, but I hope even more that it's for a long time.
I think, yeah, and even Ottawa, like, they've got Chikrin and Shabbat, like they are both left-handed, but I think from the teams that I've heard that are interested, I think the two best fits are either Dallas or Seattle.
I think he could
Are
be
the
huge
two?
for Seattle. I
Yeah,
think
I
that would be
like
a
he
great fit
would he
for him.
would clearly be the guy. Like it's kind of tough, like a big L for Vince Dunn. But even on Dallas, kind of getting that connection back with Pavelski, um, having a top pair of Carlson and Heiskanen is just gross. Um, but I
Yeah,
think
holy crap.
Seattle's like the best fit for him,
Yeah.
where he can still really thrive and be the guy and not, kind of be back and forth with someone else.
Yeah. Not to mention it's, what he wants. He'd be in a good team that looked like they got to a really close game 7 in the second round this year against Dallas after beating out the defending cup champs in a game 7 in round 1. And they're only going to get better. They got young guys coming up. They got Matty Beniers, when Shane Wright eventually makes that jump.
And
Like,
Seattle is in my mind the second biggest winner in the draft, like not including Chicago because obviously Bedard and whatnot.
I
But
was
like
say,
aside from
I don't
Chicago,
include them because we knew
yeah, like
they obviously win. They got Bedard.
Seattle's probably the next biggest winner after Columbus, I would say. They smashed the draft. So,
Yeah.
I think adding Carlson there would make Seattle like an instant, right up their top contender.
Yeah, you just got to wonder if they have the assets to make it work.
They do. Seattle definitely does. Seattle's probably, I would say them and Ottawa, out of the teams interested, probably have the most assets to give up if they want to get Carlson.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think those are two of the most realistic possibilities.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up here. We
Yeah,
might end up
that was a good
chopping this
marathon.
into 2 bits because that's how much time are we at?
Uh, Quite long. We're pushing on. We're probably at about. I think we're like at about an hour 45, give or take. So,
Yeah, we might.
It's a good marathon there.
Yeah, we might chop this up into 2 pieces and then just go a Friday and maybe we'll give them a bonus Saturday upload or something.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll figure it out.
We'll see.
We got lots coming up over the next couple weeks, so there will be lots of content we'll be pumping out here.
Yeah, once the next regular season starts, we'll be putting out our consistent videos on Fridays, and maybe we'll add a second day if we feel the need to. But during the off season, I figure maybe we'll start putting up videos just like July 2nd, and we'll talk about July 1st, whatever day of the week that lands on, just to keep some of that gossip fresh.
Exactly, right? Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, if you're still around after all that, thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you in the next one.